The squids themselves can grow to be 14 meters long and weigh up to 750 kilograms with eyes the size of a dinner plate and razor-sharp sickles in the middle of their tentacles.
If you would like to hang out and chat, make sure you check out my live streams on Twitch or my other YouTube channel. Those links down below. Also, my Patreon, where you can see more content on there that's not on here.
Okay, you tell me where you can get aborted fetuses for 70 cents on the dollar. You tell me, Chuck. Yeah, I didn't think so. You know, I'm just like the fetuses, Chuck. I wasn't born yesterday either. Uh-huh.
Hey guys.
See?
Oh, I'm stuck. I can't do anything. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Today I'm going to react to The Ocean is Way Deeper Than You Think.
The ocean is really, really deep. Deeper, in fact, than most of us realize. The ocean is really, really deep. Deeper, in fact, than most of us realize. If you were to shave off all of the land from the tops of every continent and island in the world and fill up the ocean's deepest points with that land, then the entire Earth would be covered in an ocean 2 miles deep.
I just started this video. Where do you have to... It's 21 seconds in. If you take all of the land and you fill the deepest parts of the ocean with every single piece of land, then the world would still be completely covered in water, 2 miles deep.
3/4 of our planet is already covered in water though, and it goes a lot deeper than just 2 miles. Let's start with a sense of scale. This dot right here is the size of an average human, this slightly larger dot is the size of an elephant, and this is the size of the largest ship ever built, the Knock Nevis. With that in mind, let's start going underwater and see what we find out.
That's the largest?
The first milestone is at 40 meters below the surface, which is the maximum depth allowed for recreational scuba diving. A little further down at 93 meters is where the wreck of the Lusitania was discovered, which is interesting because the Lusitania itself is 240 meters long, which means that it sank in water shallower than it is long, so if the ship was standing on its stern or bow, it would be sticking out of the water.
I remember hearing about that before. Specifically remember about a ship that if it was tilted upright or sunk perfectly straight down somehow, it actually wouldn't even be submerged underwater. Makes an accident sound a bit more devastating because, like, if it just hit at the right angle or something stopped it, like, it just makes the water sound shallow considering the ship was longer.
Just slightly deeper than that at 100 meters is where diving can become seriously fatal if you're not careful because of decompression sickness. But that didn't stop a man named Herbert Nitsch to accomplish the free diving world record at a depth of 214 meters. This guy swam down to this level with just one single breath. But a little further down at
I've heard about people being able to hold their breath for 8 minutes, but I mean, if there's already warnings at 100, it's crazy to think that he doubled it.
But a little further down at 332 meters, we have the scuba diving world record, which was accomplished by another man named Ahmed Gabir. If he had swam down another 111 meters, then he would have reached the height of the Empire State Building if it was submerged underwater. And a little further than that, at 500 meters below the surface, we arrive at the maximum dive depth of blue whales, the largest creatures on the planet and also the limit of the US Seawolf class nuclear submarine.
Already so weird to imagine that the deepest a scuba diver has went doesn't sound that far off from the deepest a whale would go. And I guess I just assumed there was a bigger difference. Clearly 332 meters, there's a really big difference to that to 500. Maybe I should even measure it a different way just so I fully understand there is clearly a huge difference. But I don't know, something told me it would just sound larger. Like, oh, at least double. I mean, they're whales.
At 535 meters, we can witness the maximum dive depth of emperor penguins, and this is when we must bring up the intensity of water pressure. At this level below the surface, the water pressure exerted on a person, or the penguins, would be roughly equivalent to a polar bear standing on a quarter. So further down the depths at...
I'm sorry, but what is that measurement? A quarter with a polar bear standing on it. Because it's a really concentrated, it's a really small object. Yeah, you want to say a polar bear so you can picture the weight. It just sounds funny.
So further down the depths at 830 meters would be the height of the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, the tallest building in the world. Once we hit 1,000 meters below the surface, we begin to enter the scary zone. Light from the surface can no longer reach beyond this point, so the rest of the ocean below is shrouded in permanent darkness. On top of that, the water pressure you would experience at this point would be about the same as if you were standing on the surface of the planet Venus.
Thought that there would be like a scientific name for this zone, just like how we section off different parts of the sky or clouds. Scary zone. Also really nice that it's at 1,000 meters. That's really easy to remember. So around 1,000 meters, there's no light. No more light from the sun can reach. Imagine just dangling your feet, just paddling in the water, and you have no idea that that depth is under you. I'd rather fall from the sky.
Surface of the planet Venus, meaning that you would die very quickly. You would also meet the giant squid at this sea level if the water pressure didn't already kill you. At 1,280 meters, we reach the maximum depth dived to by the leatherback sea turtle, and further down at 1,828 meters, we would reach the deepest part of the Grand Canyon were it to be underwater with us. Down at 2,000 meters, we start to encounter some of the more terrifying sea creatures, like the ominously named black dragonfish, a carnivorous beast with a stomach that doesn't allow light to be emitted through it. Meaning that since we're in total darkness underwater at this point, the only way you would ever see this thing is with a flashlight. A little further down, at 2,250 meters, we would reach the maximum depth dived to by both sperm whales and the very frightening colossal squid.
Okay, so
sperm
some
whales
whales
often have sucker marks and scars left on their bodies from battles with the colossal squid that likely take place at these incredible depths. The squids themselves can grow to be 14 meters long and weigh up to 750 kilograms with eyes the size of a dinner plate and razor-sharp sickles in the middle of their tentacles. So yeah, good luck with that down there.
Isn't it true that we've only explored like 5% of our ocean? Stop. Stop sharing. I don't want to. Razor sharp sickle teeth. To imagine those colossal sized battles in darkness, in water. It just sounds very alien. And it's like, nope, that's right in our oceans.
Way further down at 3,800 meters, we can find the wreck of the RMS Titanic. And a bit past that, at 4,000 meters, we start to enter the abyssal zone of the ocean. Water pressure is at an astonishing 11,000 pounds per square inch down here.
Actually, I'll pause again because I'm really sorry, but the last example that he used as a wreckage for a ship was a ship that if it was turned upright, it would actually be poking out of the water. And then the very next example of a shipwreck is barely above the abyssal. I keep wanting to say abysmal. Abyssal zone. Like, it's made it past the colossal squid fights with the sperm whales and the Grand Canyon. Like, oh my goodness, that's how deep the Titanic is? The other one wrecked and it could basically poke out of the water.
Water pressure is at an astonishing 11,000 pounds per square inch down here, and there are numerous strange, almost alien-like creatures that inhabit these depths, such as the fangtooth, anglerfish, and viperfish. Down at 4,267 meters is the average depth of the ocean where you would normally expect to hit the floor, but there are parts of the ocean that go significantly deeper than even this.
Noted. Okay. So this is like the equivalent of average, at least, to our average of just land. And then we have places like Mount Everest still. So there's still a huge difference between where we're going from this moment right now. I think the pressure is also crazy to think about because we've already used an example like the polar bear in a quarter, whatever. We'll just move on from that one. But the equivalent to being on Venus. So we're using pressure scale off of this planet to describe how much the pressure would be, like literally out of this world on another planet, to describe what these sea creatures live in. They live with this pressure. Wasn't there an anglerfish recently that just kind of swam up to the surface casually? First of all, they're tiny. It's not like I thought that they were huge, because I learned a long time ago that they weren't because of Finding Nemo. I really liked anglerfish, and then I looked them up, and I was like, oh wow, a lot of them are really small. So whatever. But yeah, she swam almost all the way up to the surface, and then died. And people like romanticized or humanized the experience. They had like all of these little sketches.
There are parts of the ocean that go significantly deeper than even this. At 4,791 meters rests the wreckage of the battleship Bismarck sunk during World War II, and way down at 6,000 meters is the beginning of the Hadal zone, named after the underworld Hades itself. The water pressure down at these depths can become 1,100 times what you would experience way back on top at the surface, which is roughly equal to an elephant balancing on a postage stamp or a single person carrying the weight of 50 Boeing 747 jumbo jets. Down at these depths, you would be crushed immediately without any outside protection, but life still exists down here in various strange forms.
What are these scales for measurement? No, I really like them, just like the last video. I felt like it just gave different ways of perspective. So I actually do appreciate the scales. It's like, wow, tons, several tons, lots of tons, 100 tons, like everything kind of just starts sounding the same. But then you picture a person with 50 planes on top of their back. Or like how a stamp actually would be obliterated under an elephant's foot, kind of. I don't know.
At 6,500 meters, we reach the maximum depth that the DSV Alvin can dive to, a popular research submarine that helped to discover the Titanic. Way further down at 8,848 meters below the surface, and we have arrived at the height of Mount Everest, where to be upside down and placed underwater. And then, way further past
even more!
At 10,898 meters, we arrive at the depth reached by James Cameron in 2012 during the Deep Sea Challenger mission. The deepest point in the ocean yet reached by humans was back in 1960, though, when two men named Don Walsh and Jacques Piccard reached a depth of 10,916 meters using their Trieste submarine. It took them 5 hours to descend through the ocean to this depth, and they only stayed for 20 minutes before a window cracked and they began to resurface.
People made it that deep? And the window cracked? We made it, boys. Or I guess there was just two of them. Going back up. It just took 5 hours to get there.
Just a bit further down from there at 10,972 meters, and we reach the average flight altitude of a commercial airliner. So if you've ever looked out of a window while on a flight and looked down to the ground, that's a very good sense of how incredibly deep down into the abyss that we are currently at. Finally, when we hit 10,994 meters, we have hit the bottom of the known ocean called the Challenger Deep, right here on this map just about 300 kilometers southwest of Guam Island. However, it is believed that there are almost certainly even deeper parts of the ocean than this that just haven't been discovered yet. It wasn't until 1997, after all, that the Sirena Deep was discovered with a depth of 10,732 meters, making it the second deepest known point in the ocean. It is estimated that only about 5% of the ocean's floor has been accurately mapped, leaving the other 95% to be currently a mystery. It may be only a matter of time before an even deeper part of our ocean is found, and who knows what we may discover there.
If there was a program that I would just be invited to randomly, come with us. You have a free ride to learn about space. You might even get to travel to unknown places. I think I would do that, especially if I was a bit older, maybe in my 40s, a little bit older, 50s maybe. Definitely. I could be any age, and I am not interested in exploring the ocean. I don't care. The types of creatures and the colossal types of creatures, like the giant squids, I think that's really fascinating, interesting too. But also kind of scary to think about. But yes, really fascinating. I think discovering creatures like that can only survive in the ocean, because if we bring them up and they somehow can survive on land, let's not do that. But yeah, the ones that can only survive in the ocean, where if, whatever, but stay in the ocean. Mm-hmm. Really cool to learn more about. But yeah, I think that's it. I hope this video turned out okay. Thank you so much. If you have any other suggestions, I'd really like to hear them because I am trying to change up the YouTube a little bit. So if you have other suggestions of videos, let me know down in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check out my live streams too if you're already here. I live stream on Twitch and on YouTube. And I would love for you to join and chat. Yep, playing video games or doing nothing. I don't know, but you'll see. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.